Hey, this is Bryce Harper, and welcome to the Philly Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, as Bryce Harper said, the Philly Show with Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury, Todd Zalecky. We're brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. How are we doing, gentlemen? We got a new little intro going.
The sleek intro, dude. Tight,
sleek, tight. We
a
tightened it up.
little Billy Penn, visual.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, we tweaked the intro. We tightened it up a little bit because baseball is a game of adjustments, and we are a baseball show, so we adjusted.
We are known to be open-minded to adjustments.
Yes.
Yeah, well, so we are, but are the right people.
Are the right people that we cover on a daily basis, are they open-minded to adjustments? Guys, Dave Dombrowski talked at the ballpark on Tuesday for 45 minutes. It was a long one. Rob Thomson then followed. He got a contract extension through 2026. He talked for 25 minutes. My head was spinning afterwards. Jim, right? I mean, Jim's, you've written these stories where you're sitting there and go like, where do I start? How do I start writing this story? How do I try to sum up everything that happened? And for me, I think the takeaway was they think that they can still win a World Series with this core mostly intact, but they're going to make some adjustments. Don't expect anything super major, but I also wouldn't put it past Dave Dombrowski. I mean, what did you guys take away from today?
Yeah, I got the feeling, they think they have a good squad, and they do. They won 95 games.
Yeah.
And they had a bad series. They didn't have a great second half, but it wasn't a miserable second half. And then they had a kind of a miserable week against the Mets, and they were bounced. They didn't play well at a very important time. So I got the feeling that they like their core, but I didn't get the vibe, Todd and Ruben. Like last year, there was this talk about the Phillies are running it back. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get that vibe that they're running it back. I think there is self-awareness in that organization that they do need to make some adjustments. And Dave Dombrowski used the word he's open-minded to it. And I think, having followed this guy really throughout his whole career, right until he was in Montreal, Florida, Detroit, Boston now, he's not a guy who gives away a lot. He kind of keeps things close to the vest. But you have to kind of parse his remarks and read between the lines. And when he says he's open-minded, when he says things like, we're going to look at the offense, when he says things like sometimes you have to trade good players for good players, mm-hmm. I read between the lines a little bit, and I see an awareness that they need to make some fixes, fix some of the things that went wrong for them and led to that early bounce in October. And I came away thinking that we didn't get a ton out of that news conference. It wasn't crazy illuminating, but I came away thinking it's still going to be a pretty busy winter.
I will tell you this right now, guys, they will not be running it back. Yes, I think it's great that the manager's back. And yes, I also think that it was sort of an old school thought process by Dave Dombrowski. He's giving his manager every opportunity to sink or swim. He's giving his coaches back. He really wants his coaches back. He wants from the bench coach to the hitting coach to the pitching coach. He wants all those guys back because he truly believes that they're great coaches and they will help them get to the promised land. So Dave Dombrowski is allowing the manager to do just that. And listen, if he fails, he'll make a change. There's no question about it. I've seen him. I've seen how he works. I respect the fact that he's giving him the keys to the car, and it's really up to Topper and his group to run with it. I love Topper. I think he's a great manager. I think he's very aware. I think he understands their foibles. I think he also understands how to motivate people. There's a lot of talk about that. He's not motivating them properly and all this other business, that they got soft at the second half and all this. I don't think it was that. I think it was more about teams making adjustments on them and them not adjusting enough. And you have a lot of veteran guys that have to be open-minded to be able to adjust. Now, I will tell you this. Dave Dombrowski will make changes with this roster. He's not going to run this roster back because he knows that there's some weaknesses there. He knows that he doesn't. He's got some streaky players. He's got some very dangerous players. He doesn't have great hitters other than Harper, I think. And you kind of thought that Turner was going to be a great hitter, but he's seeing, as we all have seen, that he's kind of a slasher. He swings out of the zone. He doesn't stay in the strike zone a lot, and he doesn't walk a lot. So I think that they're going to try to make some tweaks in the outfield, whether it's center or left, both. And I do believe at the end of the day that you may very well see, a trade where you're trading quality for quality, and it may have to be at the big league level, whether it's Castellanos or Marsh or Stott or, JT or whoever it is, whoever it might be. And I don't necessarily think that it's going to be any or all of those guys, but it's possible. And I think Dave Dombrowski is going to keep an open mind, because there needs to be a little bit of a cosmic shift on how they handle when it's time for them to do the right thing offensively. They're going to have to make an adjustment to do that, and they can't have they can't have nothing but streaky type players who can hit the ball out of the ballpark. They have to have people who can pass the baton and move that lineup and turn it over and grind out at bats, which they did not do well. And they also have to address that bullpen. I mean, listen, there's two guys in the back end of that bullpen, Estevez and Hoffman, are gone. They're free agents. And, it's a matter of whether or not, he wants to really put some, whatever, assets he has into bringing a lockdown closer, or to at least revamp that bullpen. And boy, it's a crapshoot if you don't have that lockdown closer. And I'd like to see them make a move for somebody, somebody like the kid from St. Louis, somebody like the Devin Williams. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Give that guy the baseball in the ninth. Let life be a little bit easier for Topper, and then work from the back to the front.
Dave mentioned the outfield a little bit. Ruben, you said left field, center field, maybe. So he said right now, again, potential trades on the horizon. He said Castellanos and Marsh, he can see them kind of being pieces. He's not sure about Hayes and what we're going to do there. Johan Rojas, he's going to have to come into camp trying to compete for a job this spring. He said the same thing last offseason. Says he's going to spend all offseason working in Clearwater on his offensive game. He mentioned Justin Crawford by name, says, I don't think he's going to compete for a job coming out of camp, but I do think he is coming along fast, and he can compete, or he could push for a job at some point this season. So it sounds like left field, center field right now going into the offseason are two areas that they're going to look to maybe fortify or look at differently. And if they do that, maybe Marsh is available. Maybe they trade Marsh to do something. Ruben, in the last episode, I think it was, you mentioned Alex Bregman. He plays third base. I know they said a lot of positive things about Alec Boehm today, but maybe they look to trade Alec Boehm. He's still got 2 years of team control. Teams love players with team control. So there's a lot of different things they could think they can do to get creative to make some improvements to this roster. No?
Oh, I agree. Yeah, no question about it. Jim, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I think they're going to need to be creative. They're going to have to be open-minded to possibly eating some salary. But I do see, GMs, when they grow up dreaming of being GMs, they grow up dreaming of making trades and remaking teams via trades, right, Ruben?
No doubt.
And I think
I love trade. I would trade my mom if I had to.
Yeah, if it makes your team better, you trade
make my
your
team
mother,
better.
your grandmother, you trade your aunt.
Darn tootin'. Yep. Even my brother, the whole 9 yards. Maybe not my kids. My kids stay.
I'd be open to trading anybody. I don't mean to get too narrow viewed here, but boy, I hope they don't make a hasty call on Alec Boehm unless they're getting real value back. Really good player, because I know he had a tough stretch there the final 6 weeks, but the hand was something I think you have to consider. And I think he was very frustrated. I think he's still a young guy, still maturing, and I think there's a lot there. I think he's a good player, and unless you're getting something really good back, I'm open-minded to it, but I hope they don't make a hasty decision on Alec Boehm, because I think he's a good player who's still getting better.
And if you listen to what Dave and Rob said today, Jim, they talked a lot about going gap to gap and hitting the ball up the middle and watching what the Mets did in the first game of the NLCS or second game of the NLCS. All their hits are right up the middle. Alec Boehm's one of the guys that can consistently do that, go gap to gap. So if you're going to put your money where your mouth is, it would seem to be that you're going to maybe want to have Alec Boehm in that lineup next season.
Yeah, no question about it. But he's probably the guy with the best. I mean, he's the biggest asset they would have. And you're right, Jim. I mean, if they're going to make a move on a guy like that, they better really improve in a couple of different other areas, whether it's a lockdown closer or you need somebody in left field. Like, shoot, I don't know. I can't even, I can't even think of somebody right now who's like an everyday left fielder who's going to, be a grinder, really good at bat every time. I don't know. I'm thinking Raul Ibanez or somebody like that, a player like that who's going to give you a different sort of look out there. It better be a really productive bat and somebody under control, because control means a lot. And a guy like Alec Boehm has a ton of value. There's no trade clauses. He's wide open to be moved. Same thing with a guy like Stott. Same thing with a lot of guys. And so I just do think that Dave Dombrowski is going to keep an open mind. I am sure that he's on the board right now in the meetings, where they're going to have some meetings next week at some point where they're going to get on the board and it's line up all the guys. All these players are arbitration eligible and possibly even be moved. Line up all those guys that are free agents and then just talk about them ad nauseum. The analytics guys, the scouting guys, they're all going to get together and they're going to line up these guys much like they do in a draft, and they're going to try to figure out who to target, how they can target it, whether it's a two-way trade, a three-way trade. There's some way somehow to shake up the lineup to make it a little bit deeper. And if not, then you really have to pound guys like Marsh and Stott, because they have to become better players. Because if they're not going to make changes, then they better make changes within themselves. Mm-hmm. And those guys have to step forward. I was super disappointed that they didn't take better leaps forward, both those guys, because they could be those guys. But right now, they have not proven to be able to take that step leap forward. Now, can it happen? I think it can. But I think it's important that even if they don't make those moves, they got to make it. They certainly have to improve.
And we will be right back.
We're looking for real ways to boost our nutrition and just found a protein shake that actually tastes amazing. It's called Orgain, and it's been a game changer.
Orgain is the leader in real protein-powered nutrition that understands that being good for you doesn't have to taste bad. It's the organic ingredients we're looking for, but I don't want a grainy battle with my taste buds every day. You know what I'm saying? It's giving smooth milkshake vibes. That's Orgain, and they have a brand new 30-gram complete protein shake that offers protein-packed real nutrition designed to satisfy your cravings without all the sugar.
It gives me energy, provides muscle support, and helps manage hunger too. It's also made without soy ingredients and made with no artificial flavors or sweeteners.
Orgain 30-gram protein shakes are available at Orgain.com. If you want to get in on the delicious protein-packed nutrition today, head to Orgain.com/FOUL and use the code FOUL for 20% off your order. Once again, that's Orgain.com/FOUL for 20% off. And make sure you use promo code FOUL so they know FT sent you.
We're back.
Hey, one of the themes I picked up at that news conference today was, last year they talked a lot about eliminating Chase. They talked a lot about it in spring training. A lot of that fell on Kevin Long's plate. Today, one of the themes was use the whole field, like you mentioned, Todd. It seemed to be directed a lot at Turner and maybe Stott as well, but a lot about grinding out at bats, using the whole field. Thomson, I thought made a good point. He thinks if you use the whole field, you're going to stay on the ball longer, and that could lead to less chase, which I agree with. It's just tough to change hitters when it's ingrained, when they're pull happy, when they're chase happy or prone to chasing. But a lot of this is going to fall again on Kevin Long's plate and his staff. With the early exit and some of the inconsistency on offense this year, I thought a guy like Kevin Long, his position could be under review. Sure, they talked about it, but, he's back. And he's got a lot on his plate, like I said. Were you guys surprised that there wasn't an accounting somewhere on the coaching staff?
I was a little surprised that there were no changes made for sure. And, Rob, of course, defended, the job that Kevin Long has done, says, what did he say, Jim? He said if you polled every coach in the big leagues, he would be in the top 5 of every one, best hitting coach list, maybe number 1 on several of those lists. So it did surprise me that there wasn't some change somewhere. But I think that tells you how much onus that they're putting on the players. But you make up a good point, because I feel like every offseason, GMs and managers, they go in saying, we're going to work on this guy, and we're going to work on putting the ball in play. And Jim, you say it too all the time. It's part of their DNA, some of this swing and miss. And so I almost feel like they're going into the offseason saying the same things, maybe, that they went into the last offseason saying, like, we're going to work on this and putting the ball in play more and swinging and missing less. And is it possible? But then maybe not. But then again, I look at Kyle Schwarber, for example. He's actually somebody who went into the offseason with the plan of reducing his strikeouts and not being so pull happy. And he raised his batting average by 50 points. He sacrificed some power, but I think everybody would agree he was a more productive player this season. So maybe there's a lesson there for Trey Turner and some of these other players in the lineup where, hey, if the big bopper guy over here, can hit the ball the opposite field a little bit more, but maybe cut down his strikeouts, maybe put the ball in play more. Maybe I can do that too. I don't know.
I think you make a good point. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but guys can change. Guys can change if they really believe that they should do that for the betterment of the team. If they are really, Michael Jack Schmidt made a very, very big change in his overall approach as a hitter, literally 10 years into or 12 years into his career. He decided, you know what? I don't want to strike out as much, and I'm going to make an adjustment. Ozzie Smith made huge adjustments with his swing. Omar Vizquel, huge adjustments, made himself a quality, offensive player. These guys made adjustments. It can be done. It's not easy, but you have to have both feet in, man. You have to put yourself in a position to say, you know what? I got to get better. And I know that I can be a better player and more complete player if I really put my mind to it and make the effort to do so. Look at a guy like Sean Manaea. Perfect example. Sean Manaea saw Chris Sale in the middle of the season throw and be effective with his arm angle and the way he delivered and the difficulty he put on both right-handers and left-handers with his arm angle. He changed it in the middle of the season. That is an extremely difficult thing to do. When you start thinking about some of the guys who was it, the pitcher from the White Sox who's now with the Boston Red Sox who's gotten hurt? He went to a totally different arm stroke. The starter begins with a G, I believe. Anyway, Giolito did the same thing. He made a complete change in his delivery. Those are
Charlie Morton when he watched
Roy Halladay. Same thing there. So there's a lot of examples to do that for guys to do that. But you really have to be, you have to say, you got to take a really good look in the mirror. That's a tough thing to do when you're making, $10 to $50 million a year, and say, you know what, I got to get better at this. Lots of kudos to Kyle Schwarber for doing just that.
These hitting coaches have a very, very difficult job, because when you're in the batter's box and the adrenaline is flowing and the pressure is on, and there was a lot of pressure on this team. We talked about it before. I think they were smothered by expectations. But when you're in the batter's box facing 96 with movement on the black, you're going to revert back to the ways you were. And the best hitting coach in the world is not going to be able to change you. So, I'm not suggesting I think Kevin Long is a good hitting coach. I agree with Rob Thomson. My point on Kevin Long is I just know how the game works.
Right.
Big payroll, high expectations, consistent problem. Somebody pays the price, and often the guy oversees that area. So I was just wondering if we were surprised he's back. In a lot of ways, I'm glad he gets another shot, because I put it more on the players than I put on the coach.
No, I totally agree with everything you said, Jim. And I've made changes. I made a change in the middle of the season with Milt Thompson. I didn't want to do that. I love Milt Thompson. I also think he's a very good hitting coach. Sometimes a message just needs to be heard differently for whatever reason. Now, I also think Kevin Long is a very popular coach. The players love him. But it's a production business. And so if you're not producing, you're right. I mean, they banged both of their assistants last year. They sort of took the scapegoat fall for whatever happened one season ago. So am I a little surprised that there was not a change? Maybe a little bit, but I don't disagree with you. I mean, if you have a good hitting coach, man, sometimes it's on the players. The onus is on the players to make sure that they make the adjustments that are necessary. And I think, one, they're hoping that will happen. And two, I think that they're going to bring some other people in there that maybe can help create that a little bit of a different dynamic.
But will it be the big guy? And that's the question here. And this is a great time for
Fightin' Words.
M's Fightin' Words, presented by Shy Vintage Sports. Get unique throwback Phillies tees, hats, and sweatshirts from local artists at their shop in the city, Wayne and Westchester, and at shivesports.com. Ruben loves his gear. We all love our Shive gear. We absolutely do. And this is something that everybody wants to know, right? And this is from Dave Dombrowski. Them's Fightin' Words, quote of the week. I don't think we need to add more star players. We have about as many stars as anyone in baseball. Would we be open to it? Yes, but I think you have to be careful because sometimes it's not only the star players, it's the supporting cast. Did he just throw cold water on Juan Soto? Guys, everybody wants Juan Soto to be hitting in the middle of the Phillies lineup next season or leading off. Sure doesn't sound like it's in the cards, and we've said this before the last couple weeks. I don't know how it fits. The Phillies were at the second luxury tax threshold last year. They didn't want to cross a third because I think when you cross the third, the penalty obviously is immense. Your top draft pick drops 10 spots. It's a crazy, crazy penalty. And for a lot of reasons, but is that how you guys took it? Is that the, I'm not going to say Juan Soto, but don't get any Juan Soto jerseys made for Christmas in anticipation of the move.
That is the way I took it.
Okay.
And, he did not use Juan Soto's name, but when he talked about star players, I think it was your question, Todd. Great question. When you brought up star players and he talked about star players, my mind only went one place. And
so did the entire Philadelphia, Delaware Valley, tri-state area, whatever you want to call it.
And with two $300 million players already, one who's signed for 9 more years, one who's signed for 7 more years. As you mentioned, that tax and the draft penalties. This is a team that has had some better drafts, but they need to continue to build or augment through the draft. I think it's a big concern. I just don't feel it's happening. I think they'll be in it because I think they owe it to their fans and themselves to at least take the temperature of what it's going to take to get him. See if he has this huge love affair with Philadelphia, and this is the only place he wants to be. To kind of, and also maybe run some interference for your competitors, but I just don't see it happening. I think it's a New York, San Francisco thing. One of the two New Yorks or San Francisco. And I mentioned they have 2 $300 million players already. This is probably going to be a $500 million player.
Right.
So I'll go conspiracy theory.
Okay.
So we talked about Kevin Long not going anywhere. You know who Kevin Long's best buddy is.
Yes.
It's Juan Soto. He and Juan Soto watched Max Scherzer, and they put his uniform on right behind home plate during the LA Dodgers during the World Series a couple of years back, or NLCS or whatever it was. They happened to be in the stands together watching him. Anyway, I'm just tossing that BS out there. I will also say this: did anybody think we were going to get Cliff Lee back? Anyway,
True.
So listen, I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. I do think that it's very important for them to change the mix a little bit, with a different players, supporting players that can give them, a Palacios Polanco type, somebody who can move, give you some depth and quality at bats, someone who actually is a veteran guy who, I don't know, maybe some other guy, maybe another veteran will watch this guy, play the game the right way. I mean, I'm not talking about a guy like Hanley Ramirez necessarily, or not Hanley Ramirez, Jose Ramirez necessarily, who plays the game better than anybody, plays it right all the time, is a tremendous leader. That type of player, I don't think they're going to get that type of play, that ilk, but someone who plays the game the way you're supposed to play it, and maybe that'll help rub off on other guys.
You mentioned supporting cast, and that was, I think, the exact phrase that Dave Dombrowski used. Sometimes the supporting cast matters.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's a couple around the edge tweaks, but I do get the feel that they definitely want to change the mix in some way, shape, or form. And when I talk about change the mix, Rob Thomson offered that they're going to look at that lineup and maybe make some changes in the lineup. And you might not see Kyle Schwarber leading off. And I know Thompson's a fan of Schwarber leading off, thinks he's done a great job. Schwarber likes leading off, but they're at least going to evaluate it, and they're open-minded to seeing if they change the lineup, putting Schwarber in a spot maybe where he can offer more protection to someone else in the lineup. Now, that would mean that Bryson Stott's going to really have to change his approach, because I would think he's going to have to grind at bats and become the kind of the candidate to lead off, or they're going to have to bring in someone from the outside to fill that top of the order. But, when we talk about, tweaks and changing the mix, it could be more even micro. It could be in the lineup.
That would be. What about you? You wouldn't have you wouldn't consider Trey in the leadoff spot?
Only if I would if he decided that he needed to bear down and think about getting on base rather than driving the ball out of the ballpark.
How about something crazy? How about hitting Bryce leadoff? Ohtani.
I thought about that
Dodgers.
Too.
How about?
Well, you don't have to go far north to find out what happened to that New York Mets lineup once Frankie Lindor went into the one hole. Frankie Lindor went into the one hole after being in the three hole for a long time, and he was terrible. He was bad. He went into that leadoff hole, and it changed the whole dynamic of the team. I mean, the man, I don't know whether he just made it a concerted effort, just decide that, I'm going to take pitches, I'm going to work counts, I'm going to do whatever I need to do. Can Turner do it? Can Harper be that guy? Can Stott be the guy? I don't know.
It might force Stott to change his approach become a better, more productive offensive player. I think he's smart enough to say, okay, I have to do things differently in this hole. My team is relying on me. Maybe you're getting a better version of Stott if you're doing that. I just think Trey is, and I know Trey has got so many impressive ingredients, but the free swinging would give me pause.
It would give me pause too, but maybe it gives him a mind shift. Maybe they say to him, hey, we're going to leave you at shortstop. We're going to leave you where you need to be. We want you to be productive, but hey, it's time for you to be a leadoff guy and steal some bags and do the things that we signed you to do.
Right. Yeah.
If you keep him at two, you break up and Stott's your leadoff guy. You break up the two lefties. I don't know. It could be somebody from outside. It's great stuff to kind of just gnaw on.
How about you go Turner and then Bryce Harper?
1-2.
Bryce likes to hit three.
Yeah, well, maybe he's
open to it. The only thing, you just don't want Schwarber hitting too far down the lineup. I would not want him hitting anything lower than fourth. But if you have Harper and Stott up there, then you almost have to drop somebody down into the 5 hole. I just want Schwarber hitting as high as possible. Top four spots.
Give him
Harper's
plenty of
obviously
chances
top
to
four.
drive the ball out of the yard.
Yeah. And I mean, if Harper, he all he needs to look at Kyle's RBI total this year and say, oh, if I hit first, I could still knock in 100 runs. I mean, that is possible. There's plenty of RBI opportunities hitting first.
Oh, yeah.
He'd probably hit some dingers too in the leadoff, the first inning as well. A couple other things.
I'm one of those people. I hear everybody screaming about Schwarber leading off. I'm good with it.
I am too.
He hit 16
with it,
leadoff
too.
home runs, and they won 14 of those games.
Right.
I'm good with it.
13
I'm
of those
good with it.
games. That's pretty darn good.
I'm good with it too, but you never know. It might change some other dynamics at the.
But Rob brought it up, so they are clearly evaluating everything.
And that's good. A couple other things before we wrap up here. One is our next episode. We're going to take, after everything that Dombrowski said today, after everything that Rob Thomson said today, after everything that we said today, if you have any more questions about this Phillies offseason, we'll send out a tweet, post them on YouTube in the comment section. We'll get to them later this week, answer your questions. But a couple things. Number 5 starter, Dave talked about that as a kind of a trade deadline regret, maybe. Jim, you reported, or Garrett Crochet was somebody that they took a run at and obviously didn't get him. But he said that was kind of a regret at the time. They thought that Taijuan Walker was going to be obviously a little bit better than he was. They thought Spencer Turnbull was going to come back. They liked what they saw from Tyler Phillips, and all of that completely fell apart. Now, he said Taijuan Walker is going to come to camp and compete for a job. I will believe it when I see it if he's in camp. There's still a lot of time to go in the offseason. But what do you guys think about the number 5 spot and the importance? And who do you try to get? Do you try to sign like 2 Spencer Turnbull type guys? Do you the idea of bringing Taijuan Walker into camp, is that just a distraction? Is it just a waste of time? Is it possible that this offseason training routine could possibly get him back on track? I'm very skeptical of it personally.
Me too. I'm skeptical of it, but he's owed an awful lot of money. I guess they want to take a look at him and see what he looks like, but I think it could be a potential sideshow. Mm-hmm. And I have my doubts that with that odometer reading and at his age, if he can get it back. But I guess, it doesn't really hurt to take a look at him. But, I'm a little surprised. I thought maybe they'd part ways with him, but I think you got to throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall, bring in a lot of candidates and have to get some depth and see if you can get that number 5 guy. And, you keep your fingers crossed that 1 through 4 are good and healthy for a good long time. Yeah. And then a kid named Andrew Painter arrives. But, you mentioned Crochet. I don't think, obviously, they weren't looking at him to come in and be a number 5 starter.
Right.
I don't know if they'll make another run at him this winter. Certainly be interesting. He's an awfully good one, but I think that was one of those opportunity things that, he was out there. Mm-hmm. But, if they had known Phillips was going to kind of not keep up what he was doing and Walker was not going to rebound and Turnbull was not going to get back sooner, sounds like they might have prioritized more of a kind of a typical number 5 starter at the break. I thought Dombrowski was accountable. He was disappointed that Hayes got hurt out of the gate and it didn't work out, and then he got sick. And he had a reason for not going after a number 5 starting type depth pitcher. It just, you like trades at the moment they happen. Sometimes things just don't work out. Yeah.
Ruben, real quick, Ruben, following up on Taijuan Walker, it makes me think of Adam Eaton. Obviously, a lot different money owed. But you guys in 2009, I just looked this up. You guys released Adam Eaton on February 27th. So can you lend any insight on what the thought process was of bringing him into camp? And then February 27th, I don't even know if games started yet, right?
They did because we were driving to Sarasota. We all got in the car and drove to Sarasota for a game, and they released Adam Eaton, and we were like, why didn't they release him 10 minutes ago before we all got in the car and started driving down to Baltimore or Sarasota?
We did that on purpose just to piss you guys off. Basically, that's we actually, those are the things that we try to do. Is we were trying to piss off the media as much as possible.
Thank you.
No, it must have been a reason. I can't remember, but I will tell you that we probably gathered and met about the fact that the ball just probably wasn't coming out of his hand.
Okay,
it was early.
It was early, but it was obvious that we were going to just take a different direction, and I think it took some convincing probably from Pat Gillick to David Montgomery and the crew to say, okay, we're going to eat this money. We did the same thing with Jeff Jenkins, later on. And it wasn't easy. It's not easy to part with that. I will throw the Taiwan Walker situation into this category. You never know. You never know. You never know. Maybe he could come back and if they do some things with him, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of different, medical things that he might be able to do to strengthen himself, to get his arm speed back. He didn't have a lot of arm speed. He wasn't creating a lot of separation between his fastball and his split. Perhaps they can get something out of the guy. And I think that they're going to try to do whatever they possibly can, mechanically, medically, whatever it takes to see if they can get something out of the guy. So at least he can compete at a different level.
Yeah, maybe they just bring him in and go.
Was that Tony Montana making a guest appearance?
You never know. You never know.
Maybe they just bring him in and see how he comes. That first week of camp, first 2 weeks of camp, and if he's throwing 90-91 and the split has no action to it, they just go, all right, peace out. We gave it a shot. We put you in the off-season program. But you're right. I guess you what
do you have to lose?
Yeah, you're already paying the dude.
You're paying him.
Yeah,
he's getting his glue. So why not try to get as much out of him as you possibly can? He's not I don't think he's a distraction. I really don't. I think he's not. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's going to try to get, he was there on the top step, trying to, cheer his team on when he knew it wasn't going to be contributing at all.
Yeah. And after game 4 of the NLDS, he was huddling in the corner talking with Wheeler and Nola. So it's not like he's persona non grata in that clubhouse where hates the guy.
No, he's not a zero.
Yeah. So maybe you bring him in. So there's a lot of it will be an interesting, fascinating offseason just because of all of this. World Series expectations have not gone away. They don't have the money necessarily to go out and get a Juan Soto or another $300 million player. So Dave Dombrowski, Sam Fuld, the front office are really going to have to get super creative in what they do. And Rob Thomson and the coaching staff are going to really have to drill it into these players' heads to make the adjustments that they need. So next October, if they get there, they can take the steps that they need to win a World Series. So we'll have plenty to talk about this winter for sure. And we'll be doing at least 2 shows a week. So
can't wait. We got some guests coming up too, man. We're going to slide some in.
Yeah.
We'll work them in. We got a few good ones. We'll slide some in. You never know. You never know.
You never know. Guys, we'll be back later this week. And remember, we'll send out a tweet. Send us your Phillies questions. If you're watching us on YouTube, post some questions in the comment section. We'll try to get to many as we can. Thanks, guys.
Smell you later.
Smell you guys.
The Philly Show is brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Subscribe to The Philly Show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like us, give us a review. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, and Threads. Find Ruben's analysis before, during, and after Phillies games on NBC Sports Philadelphia, on the Sports Radio 94 WIP Morning Show, and MLB Network. Find Jim at allphly.com. Find me at MLB.com, the Phillies Beat newsletter, and MLB Network.